Hey there, how there, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter. I'm welcoming you to a Sports Catastrophe live video. A lot of people will be shocked that I'm doing a Sports Catastrophe video with my face on it. But or in it, whatever. But basically, this is a major topic. Today, 54 years ago, the Leafs won the Stanley Cup for the last time. And the last time they made the finals in 1967. Now, I like to personally give a massive shout out to UrinatingTree for their video about the failure of the Toronto Maple Leafs since 1967. It's a very in-depth video that I always wanted to do, but basically I just didn't have the guts to. I don't know why. But he did it, and I give him lots of props. I like that Leaf one. It's in my like videos for YouTube, and I don't like a lot of the YouTube videos. I don't even like my own stuff. Like, with the thumbs up. But anyway, I just want to tell you this, that being a Leaf fan is not as easy as it seems. Well, obviously, when you have a franchise that's gone through 54 years of not winning the Stanley Cup and closing in on the NHL all-time record. The Rangers have that record. From 1940 to 1994, they never won the Stanley Cup. But the thing about the Rangers between 40 and 94 is at least they made the finals like 4 times, I think. Something like that. Let me think here. Since 1940, they made the finals in 1950 when they did it. 1950, 1972, 79. Yeah, they only went to 3 finals after that, after the 1940 triumph. I don't recall them being in the finals. Not in the 60s, that's for sure. 72, 79. Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess so. But anyway, yeah. They've been to the finals at least 3 times, whereas the Leafs have been to El Cipo in the finals. So anyway, I like to present you my oral history of how the Leafs' failure since 1967. So we start off, the original 6 era ended, and then 6 new teams would be added into one division. Kind of cool, don't you think? Unfortunately, the Leafs were only allowed to protect so many players, and they lost Terry Sawchuk to the Kings in the expansion draft. The Leafs would be the only original 6 team to lose more games than they won against the new 6, the fresh 6, like the Kings, the Seals, the Blues, the Flyers, the Penguins, and the North Stars. I did it in one fell swoop, and I didn't have to worry about that. So anyway, they sucked. 1969, they made the playoffs, but they were crushed by Boston. I believe 10-0 and 7-0 in Boston, so they didn't score a goal in Boston in their first round series, which went to 4 games. Game 1 was a massive brawl. Forbes Kennedy got himself kicked out of the league for good, basically for shoving a linesman and all that. And it was clear about the linesman and all that. Yeah, you push a linesman. Clear as day. 1971 would be another good year for the Leafs. They picked up Jacques Plante from the St. Louis Blues, which was shocking enough. And they paired him with a young Bertie Perron. So Quebec had 2 goalies on the Leafs squad. That rarely happens. So yeah, Plante and Perron, man. Plante wasn't doing that badly, even though that he was kind of past his prime. And in 1971, Bertie Perron was a young star athlete. He wasn't a Leaf yet. I mean, it wasn't a Flyer yet. So yeah, you have Plante and Perron on the same squad. Imagine in their primes, man, for the Leafs. However, the Leafs would play the New York Rangers in the first round of the playoffs and get taken out in 6 games. But not before a Game 2 victory, which saw a massive brawl in which stupid Vic Hadfield, flew through over the glass, the face mask of Bertie Perron. So Jacques Plante had to come into the game. Or something like that. Or was it? Yeah, it was Perron's mask. No, it was Plante's mask. And then Perron had to come into the game, I think. Can't remember who was who. No, I think it was Plante. And then basically, Plante tells the story about how a young kid gave him his goalie mask to wear for the next game, but he couldn't do it because it wasn't NHL sized, and he gave him tickets to the game. So anyway, yeah, the Leafs lost in Game 6 on a goal by, who was it? Who was the guy who sunk us in Game 6, 1971? I would say Sealy, but I'm wrong. I would say Dick Duff, but that's wrong too. somebody, I can't remember. But anyway, the Leafs went out. The Leafs would have a few other playoff romps in the mid-70s and not do much. But then the WHA came along and players jumped to the WHA, including Paul Henderson and Dave Keon. Harold Ballard didn't want to pay money to those players, so yeah, he didn't do that. Ballard went to jail for a year because of tax evasion and all that stuff. He should have gotten more years in prison. And while he was in prison, the Leafs signed two Swedes, Borje Salming and Ingrid Hammerstrom. Hammerstrom was okay, but he wasn't the best. And Salming was the Leafs' best defender for many years, even in the 80s, and that's saying a lot. So anyway, the Leafs were trudging along. They didn't really have a star goalie. Yeah, they picked up Wayne Thomas from the Habs. But Mike Palmateer stepped in, and he basically was brash. And the Leafs made it to the 1978 playoffs. They beat... Who did they beat the first round? Was it the Kings in the first round, I guess? In the preliminary round. And then they got to face the New York Islanders, the team that played it right. The Islanders were right. They decided to develop their talent and not make trades. And, the Islanders sucked for years, but then they built themselves up and up and up with great lineup and all that. And the Islanders were heavily favored to get to the 78 Stanley Cup semifinals because this was the quarterfinals against the Leafs. However, the Leafs put the pressure on. Every game was won by the home team in the first 6, 3-3. Game 7 was on Long Island. Lanny McDonald had to have that big face shield and all that. Mike Bossy was knocked out of commission. I don't know who the Leaf was who knocked him out of commission in Game 6 of that series, rendering him almost useless for Game 7. But anyway, long story short, the Leafs won 2-1 in overtime on a goal by Lanny McDonald off Chico Resch. I know it could have been different with Billy Smith in net for the Islanders, but yeah. It was huge. It was like one of the best Leafs moments of all time. And the first time in 11 years, the Leafs got to the Stanley Cup semifinals. But then the big bad Canadiens did it. 4-game sweep. Well, what can you do? It's the Habs in the 70s. So then the Leafs were better in 79 in a sense, but Harold Ballard was meddling in affairs. Roger Nielsen was fired and then had to be rehired because they couldn't find a coach who wanted to do the Leafs. And the Leafs shocked everyone by taking down the Atlanta Flames in the best-of-3 preliminary round. Then they got to face Montreal in the quarterfinals. Of course, it's the Habs. What do you expect? Game 4 was a clusterfuck after a dumb penalty to Tiger Williams called by, who was the official? Bob Myers. And then Montreal scored in overtime on a goal by my man from Kitchener, Larry Robinson. Yes, Larry Robinson was a Kitchener Ranger. Look it up, people. So, yeah, Habs easily would have had the Leafs no matter what happened. The Leafs deteriorated. Roger Nielsen was let go. Harold Ballard was trying to think he needed better men to run the team. So, in the 79 offseason, he decided to say, hey, you know what, Don Cherry and Scotty Bowman might work out. Bowman decided to opt out of his Montreal contract, still fuming that he didn't get the GM job after Sam Pollock retired. And Don Cherry was fired by Boston for his failure to take down the Habs in the semifinals. And yeah, that too many men on the ice call was terrible. Sorry, Stan Jonathan, you suck. But anyway, so Cherry and Bowman were available. But Don Cherry prided himself on what his mom taught him about you make a deal, you have to live with it and all that. You give someone your word, you have to go by it. And basically, he gave the Colorado Rockies his word as coach. And basically, it was shocking. The Leafs offered him more money, but he was a man of his word and decided to go to Colorado. It would not work out for Cherry, as basically the Rockies were the worst team in the NHL, and since they traded their first-round pick to Montreal, Montreal had the number 1 pick in 1980. But karma bit Montreal in the butt because they used it on Doug Wickenheiser. Don't get me wrong, Wickenheiser was a good player, but he wasn't a good Hab. He was better off as a St. Louis Blue. And, the Monday Night Miracle game in 86, Blues Flames. They didn't draft Denny Savard, and he was playing junior hockey in Montreal. And funny thing is, Winnipeg passed over him, too, with the number 2 pick. That ended up, Savard went to Chicago, and then Montreal picked him up a little too late. But he did win a cup with them, so karma. So, yeah, Bowman Bowman got the coach and GM job in Buffalo. He didn't want Ballard to interfere and all that. So Ballard needed something else. So he went to Buffalo and picked up Punch and Black. Unfortunately, Punch and Black had a problem with him. He was very set in his old style ways. I mean, I know the Leafs won cups in the 60s with Imlach's style, but this is the 1970s, for God's sake. Imlach didn't change things. He basically wanted to make sure that the players would basically be scared of him. So he wanted to trade Sittler. Sadly, though, Sittler had a no movement clause. So basically, he had to do something about it. Sittler got upset over the fact that Imlach was meddling in affairs and all that. And, after a few little incidences, Imlach had enough. He couldn't trade Sittler, but he decided to trade Lanny McDonald to Colorado to probably teach Sittler a lesson. And he did. Sittler decided to get rid of his captaincy right there and then. He said, no way. So basically, the Leafs of 1979-80 were messed up. Imlach meddled too much. Ballard meddled too much. They sucked. But there was a silver lining. After Punch Imlach went to hospital for a heart attack in 1980, Ballard actually shocked everyone by taking Sittler back, in a sense, and basically giving him the captaincy back. Although Ballard said that if Sittler had basically said, I don't want the captaincy anymore, and gave it up on his free will that way, I would have accepted him. So Ballard was a polarizing figure. The 1980s were a bad decade to be a Leaf fan. Sure, they made the playoffs, but from 1982 to 1993, top 4 teams in each division would make the playoffs. And the North was a 5-team division consisting of the Leafs, the Hawks, the Red Wings, the Blues, and the North Stars. Now, I know you're saying North Stars, you mean the Stars. Yes, but here's the thing, though. When the North Stars moved to Dallas, that was 93, 94. That was when the NHL decided to do the 1-8 conference seeding. So technically, Dallas was not involved in the 5-team division bullcrap. So the Leafs made a few big wins. 1986, they shocked the number 1 seed Chicago Blackhawks in the division playoffs and were inches away from beating the St. Louis Blues. But they lost Game 7 in St. Louis and couldn't go to the conference finals. They would have had a bit of a woo moment not having to deal with the Oilers after their shock Game 7 loss thanks to Steve Smith's own goal. But Calgary still went to the Stanley Cup Finals and got taken care of by Montreal. 1987, the Leafs took care of St. Louis and were actually up 3-1 against the Detroit Red Wings. Look it up, people. The Leafs were 1 win away from going to the conference finals, probably to face Edmonton in 1987, but they choked. Glenn Hanlon came in net and picked up 2 massive shutouts. So, yeah. And then the Leafs just marched on. And you know how some people say sometimes you lose when you win? Well, that happened in 1988. The Leafs won a massive game against the Red Wings on the final day of the regular season to fold themselves into the 4 seed and would face the Red Wings in the first round of the playoffs and making the North Stars out of the playoffs. That's good news. The Leafs made the playoffs. Bad news is they lost one game 8-0 and fans were throwing Leaf sweaters on the ice. However, that was bad news. The worst news was that the point total, if you look at the Leafs point total in 1988 and the North Stars for that matter, if the Leafs had lost that game to the Red Wings, they would have had the number 1 pick. They had the number 1 pick in 1985, my birth year, but they would have had the number 1 pick in 1988. Shocking, don't you think? So, yes, the Leafs didn't pick that much. So, in 1989, the Leafs sucked and had 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 first-round picks. I think 1 was from the Flyers because the Leafs traded Ken Reagan to the Flyers, I think. But anyway, the Leafs had 3 first-round picks in 1989 and thinking, wow, they're going to develop through the draft. Wait a minute. Rob Pearson. I forgot the other guys. Steve Bancroft. Scott Foreman. Who the hell are these guys? They're all Belleville Bulls. So the Leafs had 3 first-round picks and picked 3 fringe players and all that. And from the same junior team at that. Like, what the hell? Honestly, Belleville wasn't even a good team in the NHL that year. They were like second last in their division. Really. I guess to save costs. So anyway, none of them played well. And then the Leafs, trudged on. Ballard was cranky and cantankerous in his old years. He died in 1990 during the Leafs playoff series with the Blues and all that. It was hard to believe. They got rid of Harold Ballard's box at Maple Leaf Gardens, close to ice level, and, it was a better fit for people. Then the Leafs in 91 sucked. They were one of the worst teams in the NHL. In fact, they were the second worst team in the NHL in 91. Peter Ing was not the answer in that. Sorry. But it's like, okay, the Leafs have the number 2 pick. Actually, no, they would have the number 3 pick because the San Jose Sharks were entering the league and they were given the number 2 pick. I guess they didn't want San Jose to be an expansion team and get the number 1 pick, although they did it with Tampa and I believe Florida. Did they not? Oh, no. Anaheim and Florida never got the number 1 pick that year, but they did it with Tampa. Okay. Condescending, don't you think? So the Leafs would pick 3rd. Hold on a minute. Why does it say the New Jersey Devils are on the clock after Quebec got Eric Lindros and San Jose with Pat Falloon? Now, of course, as we all know, Lindros refused to play for Quebec because of the organization and not because of French Canada. And San Jose picked Pat Falloon because he was the MVP of the Memorial Cup. He was okay, but San Jose had drafted a better player in the second round from Spokane, the team that Falloon was on, Ray Whitney. So anyway, the Leafs didn't have the first round pick. Why? Because they traded it in late 1989 to the Devils, their first round pick, for Tom Crovers. Basically, they wanted a power play quarterback. Ranger fans will probably know what I'm talking about. But anyway, yeah. So the Leafs didn't have that pick, and they picked Scott Niedermayer. It's like, fuck, the Devils took Scott Niedermayer. We had Scott Niedermayer, and we botched it. Damn it. Leafs sucked in 92, despite the fact that the Leafs made 2 of the biggest multiplayer trades of all time. The first one was to the Oilers, sending Peter Ing, Scott Thornton, Luke Richardson, and, worst of all, Vinny Dompoos. Yes, Vincent Dompoos was a Leaf for many years, and was the representative in the 1991 All-Star game when he scored 4 goals. To the Oilers for Craig Berube, Glenn Anderson, and Grant Fuhr. Now, Berube was basically for toughness. Glenn Anderson, man, Edmonton want to get rid of Glenn Anderson? Nice. We'll take it. And Grant Fuhr, wow, if Grant Fuhr can do what he did in the 80s, the Leafs' goaltending problems are over. Fuhr was okay, but the Leafs team just sucked. But in 92, just first few days of 1992, they're shocked. The Leafs made a 10-player trade with Calgary. Okay, maybe, it didn't seem good on paper, but Gary Lehman, like getting rid of Gary Lehman, who won a cup with the Habs in 93. But, when you pick up Jamie McCowan and Doug Gilmour, honestly, that would help. So, yeah, the Leafs didn't make the playoffs, but they were building themselves for a better future. Then comes 1993. A great year to be a Leaf. They almost got 100 points. They ended up 3rd in their division, next to Chicago and Detroit. They made a massive trade in the middle of the 92-93 season, trading away Grant Fuhr and Dave Hannon to Buffalo for the rights for Darren Pupa and one Dave Anderchuk. Yeah, that's right. Darren Pupa was a Buffalo Sabre and a Toronto Maple Leaf before the Lightning got him in the expansion. Got him in 93. So yeah, that was shocking to see all these people and all that. Anderchuk was great for the Leafs. He was a good scoring threat alongside Doug Gilmour and Wendell Clark, when he was healthy, of course, Wendell Clark. Decent defense. Felix the Cat Potvin was basically, should have been Rookie of the Year, but basically it was the year of the rookie scorers, and Joe Juno and Timo Solani beat him in voting. But then, the Leafs went to the playoffs where they played Detroit. Mike Foligno, Nick's son. Nick's father, fuck me. Game 5. The leaping shot. It was like, holy St. Laurent. The Leafs have a chance to win Game 6 on home ice against the Red Wings. Nope, they lost. However, Game 7, they came back thanks to Wendell Clark. And then a shot from the corner from Bob Rouse tipped off Borshevsky's stick in the perfect position. And the Leafs won Game 7 in Detroit and shocked everyone. What was more shocking is they wouldn't have to face the Chicago Blackhawks, who were basically one of the best teams in the NHL that year. St. Louis took them out in the divisional round. So that meant Blues and Leafs. And the Blues were a tough team for the Leafs. It took 7 games for the Leafs to get rid of the Blues. Doug Gilbert's double overtime wraparound. Game 7, 6-0 win. Curtis Joseph was just basically that good. So the Leafs would go to the conference finals against the LA Kings. No big deal. You got to take care of Wayne Gretzky, Jari Kurri, Dave Taylor, and Kelly Rudy. You'll be made in the shade. And after 5 games, it looked like the Leafs were going to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Habs. You got Toronto, you got Montreal. Man, this would be big good. For the 100th anniversary of the Stanley Cup Final of the Stanley Cup, it would be Leafs Habs. Not so fast. Game 6 was terrible. Gretzky, high-stick Gilbert, although it seemed like a follow-through. Gretzky was not given any penalty whatsoever. Not even 2 minutes. They said, you would have had a major penalty, but 2 minutes would have been good enough. Honestly. So, unfortunately for the Leafs, Gretzky didn't get penalized. And worst of all, he scored the winning goal in overtime. No matter, Leafs were at home for Game 7. They did it again. They did against the Blues. But sadly, the Leafs got just too tired, and Gretzky put up a hat trick against the Leafs. Ugh. However, good news was that Montreal won the Stanley Cup that year. So, yeah, Canada gets to celebrate. Its last Stanley Cup currently. Then you got 94. The Leafs did okay. They made a massive trade at the deadline, getting rid of Glenn Anderson to the Rangers for Mike Gardner. I bet Rangers fans were pissed that they got rid of a goal-scoring legend in New York. But it actually worked out. Glenn Anderson helped the Rangers win the Stanley Cup in a sense. The ex-Oilers, there was 7, 8, or 9 ex-Oilers on that 94 squad for the Rangers. But anyway, the Leafs in the first round took care of the Blackhawks in 6 games. Not only closing Chicago Stadium down because, the Blackhawks couldn't play at Chicago Stadium anymore. They went to United Center the next year. But Felix the Cat Potvin had to be on top of his game. He had to have 3, not 1, not 2, but 3 1-0 shutouts to sink the Blackhawks. Then they would be shocked to know they would take on the number 8 seed San Jose Sharks, who shocked Detroit and all that. The Sharks beat the Red Wings earlier in the day to get through. Okay, the 8 seed. If the Flames had won as the 2 seed, it would have been Leafs versus Dallas. But Vancouver beat Calgary, so it was San Jose, Toronto, Vancouver, Dallas. An all-Canadian conference final loomed. And it worked. Well, this was the 1-8 seeding system first year. It worked. Vancouver crushed Dallas, and the Leafs beat the Sharks. Sadly, though, it took 7 games, not 5 or 6 like people thought. But the Leafs just tired themselves out. Canucks just took them out in 5 games. It was not that funny. Kirk McLean was just that much better than Felix. So then the Leafs kind of regressed for a while. 99, they had a new direction. Ken Dryden as president of the Leafs. Man, what an oxymoron. I mean, Ken Dryden is a Habs legend. The Leafs moved to the Eastern Conference and all that to be in a division with Boston, Buffalo, Montreal, and Ottawa. All right, the 3 Canadian teams in the same division, no big deal. But the Leafs made a big splash, signing Curtis Joseph to a free agency deal. Now, ironically, this was because Ken Dryden met with what's his name? The agent, Curtis Joseph's agent at an ice cream store. So they basically talked about Curtis Joseph. So basically, yeah, they got Cujo. They traded Felix Potvin to the Islanders for Brian Berard, which was a pretty good deal, if you ask me. But then Berard got the eye injury against Ottawa that ruined him. And, Toronto was not the same. We got Brian McCabe, good defenseman. All that. So the 99 season went well. The Leafs shocked the Flyers and the Penguins in the playoffs and would take on the Buffalo Sabres. No big deal. Buffalo didn't seem that great. Oh, yeah, they have Hasek. It's how are you going to stop Hasek? Score on Hasek. And best of all for Leaf fans, Dwayne Rollison would be in net for Game 1 of the conference finals because Hasek got hurt. But then the Sabres won Game 1. It was what? Rollison played Game 2 and the Leafs won. But Hasek basically said, fuck this. I'm not going to let This happened on my watch. So he basically willed himself to start the next 3 games of the series. And wouldn't you know it, wham bam, thank you ma'am, you're out. So basically, Hasek was the reason why Buffalo went to the Stanley Cup Finals that year. A little bit of karma happened as basically the Sabres would be taken out in the playoffs. So, but the finals by Dallas, although controversially. The Leafs won the division in 2000, pretty good. They looked good, but then the New Jersey Devils stole their thunder. Not only in 2000, but in 2001, the Leafs just fell into the trap of Martin Brodeur and the Devils. In fact, Game 6 of the 2000 series was one of the worst performances by a team ever, as the Leafs got not 1, not 2, not 20, not 25, but 6. 6 shots on goal against the Devils. The trap was just that effective. It did not matter that the Devils got to the Stanley Cup Finals in 2000 and 2001, winning the Cup in 2000 and losing to Ray Bourque in 2001. But 2002 was magical for the Leafs. Although they had some injury problems with Sundin and Cujo getting hurt for a while and some bad blood that saw Shane Corson walk out on the Leafs during the playoffs. The Leafs got to the conference finals in 2002, which was amazing. I mean, they took care of the New York Islanders, although it took too long to do it. It took them 7 games to get rid of the Islanders and then 7 games to get rid of the Ottawa Senators. I remember watching Game 6 of the Leafs Senators with my dad on Sunday night on our couch at the farm. You know, my mom was working at the nursing home and basically, talking about stuff and watching hockey. It was a great time and one of the best memories I had with my dad. So, so the Leafs would take on Carolina. And everyone's thinking, well, Carolina seems okay, but the Leafs have this one. They can get to the Stanley Cup Finals against Detroit or Colorado. What we didn't know was how good defensively Carolina was, especially with Arturs Irbe, who got revenge for that 94 playoff loss to the Leafs and basically led Carolina to the Stanley Cup Finals. Carolina would win Game 1 of the finals, but Detroit would sweep the other games. So, the Leafs got burned. Worst of all, Cujo left for free agency to Detroit. And the Leafs, instead of getting younger in net, they decided to go with an older Ed Belfour. Belfour was effective when he had to be. I mean, it was good that Cujo lost his first playoff series with the Red Wings, basically getting swept by the Anaheim Ducks. But 2003 wasn't a good time to be a Leaf fan. Well, they took on the Flyers in the first round. They did win on my 18th birthday in Game 1 of the playoffs, but, the Flyers got them. In fact, that 2003 playoff series between the Flyers and Leafs was one of the longest by time because it had 3 games go to double overtime or longer. That's amazing. And the Leafs couldn't pull it out. 2004 came, the Leafs decided to pilfer Brian Leetch from the Rangers, trying to get themselves better defense. Leetch didn't really help the Leafs and all that. And I forgot to mention about Doug Gilmour. I mean, the Leafs picked up Wendell Clark on a couple of tour duties, even giving up a first-round pick for him one time, which ended up being Roberto Luongo. But the fact of the matter is that, the Leafs got Gilmour back from Montreal, oddly enough. And Gilmour had 1 shift with the Leafs, injured himself, couldn't play. It's like, damn it. Why? So anyway, it was hard to believe. But the Leafs lost in the first round to the Flyers. Jeremy Roenick sunk us. No, sorry. That was the second round in 2004. The first round was against Ottawa, our old rivals. And once again, the Leafs beat the Senators in the playoffs in 7 games. Patrick Lalime was basically shunned out of Ottawa for that performance. But then Jeremy Roenick ended it. Lord help us, but how were we supposed to know that 2004 was the last time the Leafs won a playoff round? Seriously. Leafs went through a lot of rebuilding, basically trying to get free agents and all that for many years. Heck, they traded away 2 first-round picks for Phil Kessel. It seemed like a good deal. Kessel was a pretty good goal scorer for the Leafs at that time. But the worst part is the first-round picks that we gave Boston ended up turning into Dougie Hamilton and Tyler Seguin. Well, of course, the first pick. The second pick was the number 2 pick in the draft behind Taylor Hall. So the Leafs could have had it, a decent player. They didn't get Taylor Hall, fine, they get Sagan. But no, we traded away that first round pick to Boston. Fuck. Worst of all for the Leafs is that the Leafs got fleeced by Boston. The Leafs traded away Tuukka Rask to Boston for Andrew Raycroft. Sure, Raycroft had one good season, but he was just done as dinner. I mean, the Leafs valued Justin Pogge over Tuukka Rask. That was just terrible and all that. Of course, the Leafs wouldn't make the playoffs until 2013. First time in 9 years, it was like, yes. And then you face the Boston Bruins in the Stanley Cup final, first round. Down 3-1, force a game 7. You're up 4-1. Like, what? And then the wheels fall off. Poof, 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 poof. So, game, set, match for the Boston Bruins, and the Leafs were skunked. However, 3 years later, the Leafs would end up being one of the worst teams in the NHL and win the draft lottery. Now, I did not encourage tanking, and I don't think the Leafs really tanked, but, the draft lottery could have screwed them. But then you got Austin Matthews, the once with generational talent. It's like, yay. And then this guy goes out to score 4 goals in his first game. It's like, wow. And you've been thinking, well, the Leafs must have beat the tar out of their opponents, that being Ottawa. Nope. Typical Leafs. Matthews scores 4 goals in one game, and then they lose 5-4 on opening night. But the Leafs would make the playoffs against Washington in 2017. And a lot of people were angry that I picked Washington over Toronto in 6 games. But I said, it's not that Washington's going to beat the tar out of Toronto. Like, I don't predict that Washington's going to blow out Toronto every game. I'm just saying that they're going to beat the Leafs somehow. And then, of course, Leafs and Caps went to 6 games, 5 games going to overtime, which tied an NHL record for most overtimes in a playoff round. Leafs are out. Okay. Then they get Boston in the next 2 years. They have a 3-2 series lead against Boston in 2019. They have a chance to win Game 6 on home ice and finally end that playoff drought. Nope. Okay, Game 7 in Boston. We screwed up a couple Game 7s in Boston, but, third time's a charm, right? Nope. Cue to me falling off my friend's chair and collapsing on the floor. I did it for dramatic effect, of course. But yeah, the Leafs kept rebuilding. 2020, they lose to Columbus, but do we count that as a playoff series loss? Maybe, maybe not. But now they're the best team in the North. They have a chance, if they can get out of the divisional playoffs, to get into the Final Four. And maybe, just maybe, make the Stanley Cup final. Or win the Stanley Cup. Anyway, yeah, I've been talking way too long about this stuff. I don't want to get into too many details and all that. I don't want to bore you guys. I may have bored you already. So anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. Thanks for watching, and I'll do.